Welcome to our first episode of our Creator Conversations podcast. My name is Karina. I am the CEO of Media Mobilize, and I'll be your host for this podcast. Media Mobilize is an advertising agency where we partner with hundreds of creators and publications in the creator and marketing economy. And the goal of this podcast is to highlight key players in the space. We'll be chatting with folks who have been in this industry for years, who can provide useful insights that others can relate to and or apply to their own strategies. Today, our guest is Sabine Hossenfelder. Sabine is a German physicist, published author, YouTube creator, vegetarian, science communicator, and longtime partner at Media Mobilize. She is the creator, writer, producer, and researcher of Science with Sabine, a prominent YouTube channel that more than 1 million subscribers have flocked to for its easier to understand explanations of science topics such as quantum physics and the Big Bang. Sabine, welcome. Thank you so much for joining us.
Lovely to talk to you.
Awesome. So let's get started with the questions. 9 months ago, you posted a video called My Dream Died and Now I'm Here. That video got 3.3 million views. That's a lot of views. You discussed your experience in academia and what it's like to be a woman in STEM and what essentially led you to take a step away from traditional academia and begin your journey on YouTube. Based on the feedback and comments, there were a lot of viewers who actually really appreciated you sharing your story and could really resonate with it. And so my first question, why did you start your YouTube channel?
Well, I started my YouTube channel like ages ago, originally just to share videos with the family. But what happened was that I was writing a blog for a long time, like since, Jesus, 2006, like this is almost 20 years ago, ancient history. I was writing some articles for magazines and websites and stuff, and it was just going nowhere. And so at some point I decided I would just do the same thing with audio and video. And then the COVID pandemic hit, and I thought that's the right time to do it. So, I literally went and bought a green fabric and pinned that to the wall. And I bought a microphone and a camera and a teleprompter. And that's how my channel started. And then within like 6 months, I had like 100,000 subscribers because during COVID, like everyone was sitting in front of YouTube.
Yeah.
But that's how it started. And over the years, I just realized that it's a better way to earn money than in academia, where you constantly have to apply for grants. I mean, unless you have a permanent tenured position, which is very rare. And I was never, I was never very convinced that I would be a good fit for one of those, to be honest.
Well, when we first started partnering together, this was back in 2021, you had around 320,000 subscribers. That's still a lot, but now you're well over 1.5 million subscribers. So first, congratulations. What strategies did you use to grow your YouTube channel and subscribers?
Well, it's not a big secret. So, I mean, I think I'm a scientist deep down to the core. And if I have a problem to solve, I will research the problem. And that's what I did. So, I went online, I looked at what other people had to say. I did all the obvious things. And then you get to a point where you have no one else to ask because all the people who know how to do it are the people who are doing it themselves. And they often don't really know how it works. So you have to take everything I say with several grains of salt because what worked for me might not work for somebody else. But basically the thing you've got to do to attract viewers on YouTube or pretty much any other information outlet or something is you have to find a niche where there aren't yet too many other people. And you introduced me with saying I talk a lot about quantum stuff and general relativity. And that's right, like the Big Bang things and so on, dark matter, dark energy. And yes, I talk about this, and this is what I started out doing. But the thing is, there are so many other channels who talk about the same thing. I didn't see a lot of growth potential there, like the space had already been taken. And so over the years, I made very deliberate decisions to do something else. So I branched out to talk about related areas. I didn't just change the topic. I mean, I added other stuff. So I talked a little bit more about technology. about climate change, climate models, about renewable energy, so this entire thing. Every once in a while, I talk a little bit about mathematics. Personally, I'm very interested in biomedicine, but I'm a little afraid to talk about because I'm not a doctor, and sometimes it's hard to figure out what's going on in those papers. And yeah, so this was the first thing I did, I think in 2022 or something. I started looking at some other areas, also more space stuff, technology developments. And then after this, I introduced the science news. You might remember we were already working together because I was like, why isn't anyone doing this? Like, how can it be? Like, there isn't anyone doing science news. And then, like another year later, I decided to just take it apart into shorter videos because I see a trend on YouTube. This has been going on for a long time that the videos are just getting longer and longer and longer. And I'm not against this, but I'm like, how many people have the time to listen to all these 3-hour podcasts? Like, there's got to be a finite amount of people who can do this. And so I went into the exactly opposite direction. I was like, I'm going to tell you briefly what people are talking about today. And so, and that I think was like when we crossed the 1 million subscriber threshold.
Awesome. Well, going off of that, you moved from releasing around 2 videos to 5+ videos per week, and sometimes you add on a video when you have the time. And that happened in the beginning of 2024. So how did you find that? What were the struggles? Because 5+ videos, that's a lot of videos, right? And then what piece of advice would you give other creators who were looking to increase their input or output, excuse me?
Well, first of all, like for me, from the production side, it's not so much the number of videos that matters, but the number of minutes, because I need to write the script, I need to know what to say. I need to do the research. I need to come up with visuals. I have to actually record the thing. And then someone has to edit it, which most of the time I don't do myself. And if you look at what happened at the turn of last year from 2023 to 2024, the number of minutes pretty much didn't change. It remained pretty much constant. So this is the one thing. So if you want to increase your output in terms of videos, the obvious thing to do is to chop it up into smaller pieces. But I don't recommend it just because of this. Because in the end, what matters on YouTube is what they call the watch minutes or watch hours or something, right? So just by chopping things up into smaller pieces, you're not gaining anything. There's got to be a reason for it. And the reason we did it was that having this science news show with 8 different items was just basically impossible to find an audience for, because what are you going to put in the thumbnail, right? You can't put all 8 topics on it. And then there were always some newcomers who got really confused because they clicked on one thing, but it wasn't actually the topic of the video. Like there were like 8 other things. And so people were always like, what did I just watch? And so this was the reason we took it apart. But so from the productivity question, which I think is what you're getting at, like how do you manage to produce 5 videos a week? First of all, this only works for me because they're short videos. Because this is my main time factor, is just the length in total per week, and the rest is organization. And I know that this sounds terrible coming from a German, but I've always been good with organizing things and having lists to check and stuff like that.
That's really important. I mean, across anything that you do, right? You've mentioned that you've really branched out into different topics. Is there a favorite topic that you've ever reported on? And then is there a least favorite topic that you've ever reported on?
Well, let me start with the least favorite, which might be a surprise. But I don't really like to talk about dark matter and dark energy anymore, because I've talked about this like so many times.
So many times.
I made like hundreds of videos, and I understand why people are interested in it. I totally get it. But every time I talk about this, I feel like my brain is going to rot away or something if I have to say this one more time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I always try to find a little bit of different angle, so it's not exactly the same, but they're just like on this background. You need to say what's dark matter, what's dark energy, why are we talking
Yeah.
about it, what's the observational evidence, and so on. And so it's always the same, and I'll continue to do it. Don't worry, but I kind of dread the thought that I have to come up with yet another different angle on the exact same thing. So
Mm-hmm.
that's that. Topics that I like to talk about, it changes a lot. Like I just like to, I guess this is why this YouTube thing comes naturally to me. I just like to learn new things. So if I look into something new, I read a new paper or something. I really like doing this. And so it's something different every month, basically.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes it's more math heavy thing, then it's something that's going on in AI or,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, space stuff, everything pretty much.
Got it. Cool. And then as far as like monetization strategies, obviously engagement with your audience is really, really important. What are some ways that you like to engage with your own audience?
Well, I do whatever I can do.
Mm-hmm.
I'm on social media to the extent that it's doable. I'm on Twitter, I'm on Facebook. I'm actually also on Instagram, though I don't have a lot of followers, and various other platforms, which
Mm-hmm.
I use more or less. So, and of course on YouTube itself. So I'm trying to reply to comments, also on Patreon. So,
Mm-hmm.
and you can already guess from this long list that it becomes very time consuming. Like I could
Right.
spend 24/7 just replying to comments and
Mm-hmm.
trying to explain to people. Like every time I make a video, people have questions about it. And I try to reply to as many of those questions as I can, but there are limits to what I can do. I'm always very sorry about it, but I have to draw a line somewhere. So mostly what I'm trying to do, like if there are repeated questions where I'm like, this is really something that people didn't understand very well,
Mm-hmm.
preferably I just make another video about it where I'm like, okay, a lot of people ask this thing, and here's how it works, or this is what I think about it.
Just like you mentioned, you are across multiple different platforms. I'm curious, are there any notable subscribers or viewers that you found out about that got you really excited?
I recently found out that one of my ex-boyfriends watches my channel. that,
Oh,
that was
really?
that was some surprise.
You should give him a
um,
shout out.
Uh, yeah, maybe I should do this actually. He's not a very online person, he's very
Hmm.
private. So I found that surprising. Um, well, I'm honestly surprised that every time I go to a conference or even if I travel, people recognize me. Like they come up
Hmm.
to me and are like, "Aren't you this Hossenfelder person? I watch your YouTube channel."
Hmm.
And yeah, I mean, so especially if you go to an event where it's for people who are interested in similar things
Hmm.
that I talk about, the density of people who know me is fairly high. And that continues to surprise me, though. Like cognitively, my brain knows this. Like
Hmm.
this has to happen every once in a while. So, like, I was at Heathrow Airport like a couple of months ago, and the guy who controls my
Hmm.
passport is like, "Aren't you this Hossenfelder person? I watch your channel," and I'm like, "Yeah,
Hmm.
all right."
That's awesome. You have over 1 million subscribers, and then you mentioned in the beginning of the podcast that mainly you started making YouTube for your family. Do you think that your family thinks you're famous, or, do they enjoy, the attention that you get? How do they feel about it?
So my mom's very proud of me because that's what
Hmm.
mothers do. It's
Hmm.
partly because of the channel, but I think it's more because of the books. And there's a fairly
Hmm.
simple reason for it because my channel's in English, but the books appeared in German. So
Hmm.
actually, like locally, I think here more people know me for the books than for the YouTube
Hmm.
channel. And I mean, I do have a decent fraction of Germans in the audience, but
Hmm.
it's not 1.5 million.
Yeah. Um, Speaking of your books, you have, I know, Lost in Math, you have Existential Physics. Um, how was it writing the books? What was the process like? Do you enjoy writing the books? And then are there plans for another book, perhaps?
Well, tough question. So, yeah, I very much like writing. I've always liked
Hmm.
writing. I actually, when I was a child, I wanted to become a writer. I just didn't know how to make money with it. So this is why I
Hmm.
studied maths. Yeah, and that also helps, of course, with the scripts for the YouTube videos. So
Hmm.
writing comes to me fairly easily. I'm not exactly sure why, but that's how it is. So the two books, they're very, very different in the way that they came about, because the first is basically it's a community criticism, and I traveled around and I interviewed a lot of people, and those
Hmm.
interviews, I mean, as you know from doing interviews, they can be a lot of
Hmm.
pain, because sometimes you're like, you want people to say a particular thing, but they just won't
Right.
spit it out, right? And you're like,
Hmm.
damn, right? And then you can't really do anything about it. Or people you keep just on talking for it forever
Hmm.
without getting to the point. And so actually, after I wrote the book, I decided that doing interviews isn't the right thing for me. So I still do it every once in a while, but
Hmm.
it's just not my thing. And then the second book, so this first book, it came out to be a little bit depressing, actually, because I was like, okay, there are so many things that are going wrong, and we need to do something
Hmm.
about it, but no one's doing it. And also, these experiments at the Large Hadron Collider, they're not going to find anything, which turned out to be correct. So
Hmm.
then in the second book, which appeared 2 years ago, and now I guess it'll be 3 years, I try to remind myself of all the things that I find fascinating about the
Hmm.
foundations of physics. And you can basically see the contrast if you look at the book covers. Like the one is this black,
Yeah.
it already looks depressing. And the other
Hmm.
one is like this a light butterfly in pastel
Hmm.
colors. Yeah, so I would like to write a third book, but at the moment I just can't find the time. So yeah, so time management can be tough.
And then going back into content creation, has there ever been a time when you were in sort of a divisive situation when it came to your channel or content creation? And, has there been a video you wish you could redo or like a certain topic that you wish you could have done differently?
Well, so every video I do, after it's out, I think I could have done it better.
Hmm.
And I've decided at some point that's just how it is. You have to live with being imperfect. And I just try
Hmm.
to learn from my mistakes. And then the next time I try to make it a little bit better. And actually, if you look back at my channel, like if you look back a couple of years, I would say those videos were just horrendously bad. So I made every possible mistake that you can make. But that's how it
Hmm.
goes, right? So you can't learn without making mistakes. That's how I think about it. There have been a couple of, I mean, so there's this obvious tension that I think every creator has. There's some topics that I'm interested in, and there are some
Hmm.
topics that my audience is interested in, and luckily there's an overlap between the two. But there are some topics that I'm very interested in that I just know they won't fly with my audience. That I kind of feel like I need to talk about anyway, because I have a certain
Hmm.
responsibility of keeping people informed. For example, when it comes to climate change, like how's that going
Hmm.
and so on. And I know that people, a lot of people are like, I can't hear it anymore, like all this climate change stuff, right?
Hmm.
And those are the points where I have to remind myself, I'm a science communicator. Every once in a while, I need to talk about the stuff that people don't want to hear.
Hmm.
And so
Right.
internally, I've come to think of it as my broccoli videos. It's like, the
Hmm.
vegetables that people don't want to eat, but you put on the
Right.
plate anyway.
Hmm. Well, when you look at your channel, every time you release a video, you get thousands of very positive feedback and comments and whatnot. And a lot of the comments are like, "Wow, this is so interesting. I didn't know about this." Or you'll have a little bit of like back and forth and be like, "Oh, I thought about it like this." With negative feedback, how do you deal with that?
Well, it depends what it is. So if it's something
Hmm.
about the content, I always take note of this. As I said, I don't always have time to reply, but if I read something, like I take this very seriously. There have
Hmm.
always been every once in a while, someone actually spots a mistake in a video, and I try
Hmm.
to figure out what to do about it. Many of them are just there's a typo in the text, or I said
Mm-hmm.
millimeters when it should have been micrometers, that sort of thing, which I can fix by putting some comment in the info, which most people won't read. So then I get the same comment like 10,000
Right,
times or
right.
something. But yeah, I mean, so this is not a major thing. There have been, I think, 2 cases or something where we actually took down a video because I was unhappy with it, because people pointed
Mm-hmm.
out there's something like wrong here, like it was the wrong number, and it was kind of unfixable, or it was the wrong image to go with the text that I said, or something like that. And then we fixed it and we re-uploaded it. Yeah, I mean, then there are complaints that people have just about the content, where they're like, you shouldn't be talking about this at all because you're a physicist. So this
Mm-hmm.
is something, I don't know how much you get of this sort of thing, but this has been going on social media ever since the COVID pandemic. Like, if you have a PhD in anything, you're not
Mm-hmm.
allowed to talk anything outside of your specialty. If you don't
Mm.
have a PhD, you can talk about anything, doesn't really matter.
Yeah.
And so I don't follow the rules. I talk about whatever I want to talk about. And so I just ignore those people. And then, there are like silly things where I'm like, there are people with like 3 subscribers who want to tell me I'm doing everything wrong with my videos. Like, and here's
Mm-hmm.
how you can do it better. And I'm like, yeah, right, right.
Be my guest then. What you should tell
Right,
them, be my guest, you should
exactly.
try it.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So when people complain about my thumbnails, I'm like, well, how can I improve them? What do you suggest?
Hmm. There's a lot that goes behind the productions, the editing, the script writing, and everything. So it's very commendable, all that you've managed to achieve. We are now at the start at 2025. Do you envision down the road, maybe later this year, maybe next year, maybe 5 years down the road, um, a shift in your channel, maybe perhaps a new series, or what's like a project that you would like to work on in the future?
I currently don't have any plans because at the moment it's
Hmm.
going well. So the channel is still growing. What I foresee happening at some point is that it's going to level off. We'll just have saturated the market and people will get a little bit bored of the format and so on. And then at this point, we'll have to think about making some sort of change as we've done before.
Hmm.
But I don't want to make any plans about it because a lot of those social media things, they go by trends. So we'll have
That's
to look
true.
at what people are doing then. What's been going on YouTube for some while is that there's a trend to slower paced video with less edits and stuff. And we've
Hmm.
done a few of those things, and I loosely speaking say the results are mixed.
Hmm.
But I don't know where it's going to go. So basically, I'm keeping track of what's happening, and we'll adjust when the need comes.
Mm, got it. And then what are some dream collaborations? It could be with a company, it could be with a person. Any dream collaborations that you would ever want to do in the future?
I don't have any specific people, but as I've said a few times, not just to you, but to other people, I'm personally very interested in medicine, but
Hmm.
I'm kind of afraid to talk about it because, you know, I don't want to mislead people. Like, I'm not a doctor. I don't really know what I'm talking about. I'm just, following what's going on, and I'm very excited about it. So I wouldn't mind doing a little more things about medicine, especially because there's a lot now going on, like in this intersection between medicine and electronics,
Hmm.
like brain implants or, paralyzed
Hmm.
people who can walk again and this sort of stuff. So this is something where I would really like to, which I would like to cover more on my channel, but I don't really know how, and I would need some collaborator who knows more about those things, who can stop me from saying really stupid things, basically.
Got it. I mean, I think those topics are fascinating. I think, you would be great at reporting on them. So, that is super exciting. And then what is a piece of technology that you are excited about? Maybe something that you've read about, maybe something you're actively using, something that you think is up and coming.
Up and coming, yeah. So the brain electronics intersection, I think, is very interesting, and also the exoskeletons we already talked about. Though honestly, I think like this is like a couple of decades down the road. I mean, there are just so many small things that need to be solved. But robots are basically the next thing that's coming, and I mean there are already some robots that you can buy if you have like $100,000 or something lying around. So it's not exactly, very consumer market friendly at the moment.
Right.
But I think it's coming maybe in the next couple of years. And I would really, really like to have some robots at home. I find this just super cool.
Really? I personally, I think they're cool. I think I would be scared. What kind of robots and what tasks would you have the robots do?
Well, for example, I'd like to have a robot who carries my groceries. This is like maybe a stupid thing, but I have a back problem.
Hmm.
I can't carry heavy things, and
Right.
so so I have to take the car every
Hmm.
time I go to the supermarket, even though the supermarket is just like a 10-minute walk away. So then I always feel
Hmm.
bad for taking the car. So, but then I could take my robot, right? So I could
Right.
walk with
Right.
my robot through the aisle and say,
Hmm.
Joe, get this
Yeah.
water or something.
Hmm. That's something that I can envision happening definitely in the future. So, who knows where this world is headed, but that's very, very interesting to me. And then what are some other YouTube channels that you actively subscribe to?
Many, many. So there's a channel which is called, I think, 2 Minutes Papers or something, which is exactly what the
Hmm.
name says, which I just find super useful. It's really interesting, covers a wide variety of papers, a little bit different from my own. There are people who I know, like Brian Keating, who talks a lot about
Hmm.
astrophysics, Kurt Munga, the Theory of Everything
Hmm.
channel, who does fairly long podcasts with physicists, philosophers, and so on, which I
Hmm.
find very interesting if I can find the time to watch it. Dr. Becky,
Hmm.
also astrophysics, because I need to stay well informed. Uh, Probably forgotten a couple of people. Like there's a little channel called Anastasia in Tech, which I watch because she talks about chip design
Hmm.
on a level that's kind of technical, but not too technical that I wouldn't understand it anymore.
Hmm.
Oh, and then there is something that's called, I think, the Code Report or something, which is really like this is 5 minutes summaries of what's been going on in software and hardware development, which I also find super useful. As you can tell, I'm kind of drawn towards the shorter
Yeah.
things.
Hmm. Awesome. Okay. Yeah, I've heard of most of them, but there are a few I've never heard about, so I will definitely check them out. All right, Sabine, I thought it would be time for some fun and exclusive insight into your life with some rapid fire questions. So I'll just shoot out some questions and then just the first thing that pops into your mind. All right, first one, favorite travel spot.
Definitely England. I've dragged my family there for family vacation for the last couple of years, and I just, I really, really like the place. Like, if it was just me, if it wasn't for my family, I'd probably move there.
Hmm. What about England specifically do you like?
It's just the landscape, like it's all very green, kind of hilly,
Hmm.
and they do have beaches. Like, so I mean, you could
Hmm.
say we also have forests and meadows and so on, but in southern Germany we don't have beaches. So and
Hmm.
they have everything together, and the climate tends to be the winter isn't as cold and the summer isn't as hot. So we like to go there in the summer.
Hmm.
Because I mean, the Brits complain that they don't have real summer, but I dare you sit in our 40-degree heat wave in
Yeah.
southern Germany. So we
Hmm.
prefer going to England.
Awesome. Favorite movies.
I'm really not a movie person. So, what can I say? I really like the Harry Potter movies. I actually
Hmm.
like them better than the books because I found the books were a little bit like, and maybe I've read too many of magician books
Mm-hmm.
as a child, but I thought they were like mediocre. But the movies, I thought they were really, really well done, like very atmospheric.
Hmm.
The whole scenery. It's all set in England. Maybe that helps.
Right, right.
Yeah, yeah, and the actors, and it was all very spot on.
Which movie was your favorite?
of those. I can't remember honestly. If you ask me now, like to list them,
All the names, yeah.
I would mix them up. Like it must have been 15 years ago that I watched them. So I hope I'm excused.
Favorite books, and feel free to say your own because I know you've written your own. But any other books that you would recommend to your audience?
Yeah, I really liked The Magicians by Lev Grossman, I think, or Grossman, or whatever it's pronounced. It's again magicians, people going to a magical school and so on. It's 3 books. What's it called? A trilogy, or
Yeah.
but I've recommended this to a couple of other people. They didn't like it because it has a very slow start. Like the first part, like the first half of the first volume, it drags on for quite some while. But once once you get to the second part, you realize that it makes sense. Like if he had done it differently, it wouldn't have worked because he's trying to make a point of it taking a really long time to learn how to do it properly, so he couldn't make it short. So I thought it was like, so the guy clearly knows a lot about physics. So you notice this in many places that there are like some physics themes coming through, though he doesn't go on about it extensively. So I found this very well done.
Nice. Favorite song, artist, or band?
I'm very much a Beatles fan. I'm afraid, it's kind of boring. I know.
Beatles are classic. You can never go wrong with the Beatles.
I tend to be drawn to I have a fascination with super simple songs where there isn't a lot going on, but they work anyway, which would be like Lady in Black is like a classical example, which works like with only 2 chords, basically. It's super repetitive if you listen to it, but it still works. And there are very similar songs like U2 Numb, if you've ever heard this. Well, look it up.
Let me check it out. Yeah, I will check it out for sure.
A few seconds so that people know what I'm talking about. I'm super fascinated by stuff like this.
Do you play any instruments?
Not really. I learned to play the piano as a child, but I'm not any good at it, and I don't practice. So it's like theoretically I know how it works, but in practice I can't do it.
Gotcha. I think piano is the best instrument to learn all the chords and all the rhythms and whatnot, and then it really is the gateway to other instruments, so highly recommend. And then last rapid fire question, what is your favorite sweet treat or guilty pleasure?
Dark chocolate with sea salt.
Oh, interesting. Yeah, that's a great combo. Dark chocolate is not too sweet. Do you prefer a certain brand of chocolate?
Well, the one with sea salt. Do you really want me to say this? So we're going to make an advertisement for the chocolate company. The one that I normally buy, or that my husband buys if he goes to the supermarket, is from Lind. I actually don't know any other brand which has this particular. There must be some that do dark chocolate with sea salt, but at least here it's the only brand which sells them. I guess I could just put salt on the chocolate, but it's kind of a little bit awkward.
It's not the same though. Yeah, I do. Whenever I make brownies, I do stick with the dark chocolate one, and then I always put sea salt on it. It just brings out that flavor. So that's a great choice. Okay, well, to round out our podcast, I'd like to share with the audience our creator conference that Media Mobilize is hosting on May 15, Thursday in downtown San Francisco. It's a conference intended for serious creators who are focused full-time on creating content. We do have a great lineup of creators, publications, sponsors attending. So please check out the conference at creatorcareercon.com. We'll have the link in the description. I want to thank you, Sabine, again for being the first guest on our podcast. What you've done with your channel and your content is very inspiring to up-and-coming creators, and I'm very excited to see your continued growth this year. Thank you, Sabine.
Thank you.